it's Dr. Rick, and I'm doing an unboxing on meal supplements. Now, these things you can find at Mariano's, Jewel-Osco, Target, Walgreens, CVS. They're meant to be an accessory to a whole food, mostly plant-based diet. The only problem is sometimes I'll have people who have lost their appetite or are just being pushed by their relatives to get more calories in, more protein in. Full disclosure, with the knee-jerk reaction I had when somebody was being discharged from the hospital, if they were a little bit on the low side as far as their appetite, protein balance, or weight, we would usually suggest following the plan the registered dietitian had upon discharge from the hospital, but that's if you had a good registered dietitian. I know some very good registered dietitians that think outside the box. I also know all the other dietitians that work for the hospital, and they support all the chronic disease patients, post-stroke, heart attack, cancer victims, so they follow the protocols set by the department heads, and that would be oncology, cardiology, renal, and diabetes or endocrine. Again, it goes back to the lowest hanging fruit as far as what do we suggest family, friends, doctors, healthcare team to the patient that's being discharged for building muscle, maintaining nutrition, and staying healthier upon discharge, or average person outside the hospital that we want to eat more, gain more weight, match the nutrition and fuel that they're taking in to the exercise that they're starting. So when I went to the big box pharmacy and picked up this and Boost, and then I read the nutrition panel, I was so taken back by some of the ingredients. So if you can read that between Boost and Glucerna, this is supposed to be the healthier one, has 140 grams per can of calories. Also has 19 grams per can of carbohydrates, 7 grams per can of sugars, and 7 grams per can of protein. Now there is some fat in here too, but I think you have to concentrate on the fact that if there are people that are leaving the hospital slightly diabetic and they're also sarcopenic because they haven't moved in a while, for me the most important thing to have is going to be protein and fat, not carbohydrate. Okay, so I'm going to try to taste this. That's a can. This is really old school. I'm sure you have to shake this up. Here it goes. Old school can. It actually tastes like ice cream. That's got to be the sugar that I taste. Then I went and looked down the line and I found this. Now, I've tried this protein mix before. It was kind of okay. So if you look at this nutrition panel, it's a little bit healthier compared to the Glucerna. It still has per container 140 calories per container, but it has 6 grams of carbohydrates, less than 1 gram of sugar. It does have less than 1 gram of sugar alcohol, but it has 30 grams of protein. So the big difference is the protein. 30 grams compared to 7 grams is totally different. So if you're trying to get 30 grams using the Glucerna, you'd have to have at least 4 bottles, and that would raise your total calories and sugar per day. So here it goes. I shook it up. Wow, that tastes like sugar as well. It doesn't have as much sugar, but it does have sugar alcohol in it. But when you add an alcohol group to a sugar, wow, that tastes really sweet. There's nothing wrong with tasting like sugar. So the question is, when I take either one of these things, what kind of a hormonal hit am I inducing just by ingesting this? Am I going to take a low amount of protein and then tolerate the carbohydrates? Or am I going to take a high amount of protein and wonder, is there a sugar effect with this? As much as possible, I'd like to have my protein shake without any sugar at all. Little carbohydrates as possible, as high of a protein mix as possible. This is a nutrition panel on my plant-based milk that shows 0 sugar, 1 gram of carb, and 1 gram of protein. And that's per 1 cup. I'd probably have 2 to 3 cups. It still keeps it on the low side as far as the carbohydrates and sugar. So this is already a winner because it has 0 sugar and low carbohydrate. And here's the powder I'm going to suggest to you. I think I've done a video on pea protein in the past. I'll search and I'll link it, but I'm just using it as a substitute for this kind of thing. Now, this is easy because you just pop it out and you drink it and nobody has to mix anything. There is a step in this where you have to mix stuff up. But honestly, it's easy to do. And this shaker thing, you don't need that much strength to shake this thing up. I think it's worth it because you can control the nutrition that's going in. The caveat is you always have to use this as a supplement, not a substitute for your meals. So this is Now Sports Pea Protein, and it doesn't taste like peas. It doesn't have a flavor of peas. It actually has a pretty decent flavor, vanilla-ish. Not as sugary as those things, but I like the flavor. And here's the hook. If you look at Now Sports Pea Protein, and it doesn't taste like pea or smell like pea, but it has a flavor of vanilla. Each scoop, which is a big scoop, has 140 calories, 6 grams of carbohydrates, 0 grams of sugar, 2 grams of xylitol, and 25 grams of protein. As I mentioned before, sugar alcohols are chemically changed so that they're not absorbed absorbed, but they do make the taste of sugar still apparent. The problem or the conclusion is that if they don't get absorbed, they won't trigger an insulin response, which can be argued, but there's other studies that are showing it might affect your gut microbiome. We still have to see the data. Bottom line is that sugared alcohols are probably better than regular sugar, or at least high fructose corn syrup, so it's a nice alternative. And if you're unsure about how much protein to get, especially if you're post-hospitalization for cancer, stroke, or heart attack, most people that are in the hospital for that kind of a problem are usually going to be 50 years of age or older, typically because of the hormone waves that have decreased in that age group and the muscle wasting or sarcopenia that has been experienced from the hospitalization. You'll need at least 1 gram per pound. For people even just exercising that haven't had a hospitalization or don't have medical disease, I think that when you have an older exerciser or an older athlete, 1 gram per pound is fair. You can actually push higher than 1 gram per pound. I think the gut can tolerate it. Studies are old as far as maximum tolerance. There's a ceiling of 30 to 40 grams per meal, but the data is unsupportive of that. I think you can actually take in more, or at least get the gut adopted so it can assimilate more. When you're starting to do that, your gut, if it's not fine-tuned, might fight back a bit. I remember the first time I took protein powder at high dose because I was competing for bodybuilding in 1982. I tried the only protein powder that was popular back then, Joe Weider's, and I just had diarrhea for about 2 weeks. I continued on. I was 18 back then. I didn't understand, but I assumed that was probably good for cutting, and obviously that's not the right thing you should be doing. It did help me lose electrolytes and fluid, which should have put me in the hospital. There's smarter ways to do it now. There are better products and more science to back up exactly how people should be doing this. The data from Rodriguez out of University of Southern Florida says that people can tolerate high protein amounts, especially athletes, but always have your doctor or your registered dietitian calculate this for you. I wouldn't stay on high protein forever. I would probably check out your kidneys, check out your liver, see how your gut tolerates it, match the fuel and the macros that you're practicing with the diseases and or the exercise that you're implementing. So you can see, even if you follow the Harris-Benedict equation or you get your RMR or you figure out what your building blocks are supposed to be, it still has to be fine-tuned to match what your goals are. So get yourself a coach, a nutritionist, a doctor, and optimize on what you're doing. The bottom line is that we have to try to use nutrition to get this machinery back online, whether it's being discharged from the hospital and reversing the disease, or reversing the disease so you don't have to get to the hospital. I think that the human body is a miracle, but we have to treat it the right way, and we are not treating it the right way. So always strive to get the best sleep. Maximize on total weekly activity, a little bit of cardio, a little bit of resistance. Nutrition is ultimately important. If it doesn't serve you, then it's going to harm you, and try to have a good balanced relationship with your food, and most of all, lead your life to be an inspiration to others, and hopefully we'll get somewhere with this life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with other people who are meal substituting or meal supplementing because their doctors aren't giving them the right guidance, or they're just trying to find their own way. Thanks for watching up to this point in time. I'll see you at the next video.